The LA Chargers season begins on Friday as they face off in Sao Paulo, Brazil against the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's take a quick look at the overview of the season and what our biggest concerns and what the biggest improvements are for the team in 2025. Let's get into it. All right, so the Chargers are set to play all week one in Brazil, of all places. I know how we feel about that, taking a home game away from the team and this, that, and the third, as put them in a neutral site in Brazil. We don't like the field at all. It was very treacherous for the Eagles and Packers last year. But the silver lining is, if you're superstitious, the team that played in that particular outfit of the Brazil game, one was the Super Bowl and won it. So it could go either way, right? But that aside, the Chargers are going into the season with a little bit different look than we thought. Rashawn said is obviously gone, and he's not going to be there for the entirety of the season. So they had to reshuffle the O-line and do some other things. But from top to bottom, what are your biggest improvements and what are your biggest concerns, for the Chargers going into the season? So for my money, there's definitely some highlights that can be positive, and there's some things that could be, resoundingly negative in regards to what the Chargers are going to look like in 2025. So I'm gonna give you my breakdown of exactly what the biggest improvements are for the team and what the biggest concerns are going into the season. And these particular things, either positive or negative, could affect the team in either way. So let's start with the positives, right? We said give you bad news first, but I'm going to start with the positives today. So we're going to try to, look at it from a glass half full perspective. So with that being said, my biggest improvements here to start off is the weaponry. They definitely did a good job, even getting down to the idea of signing Keenan Allen late in training camp and bringing him in, with the sudden retirement of Mike Williams. But it did do a great job getting weaponry for Justin Herbert, because that was a sticky point last season. They definitely overachieved going 11-6. But ultimately, when it got to playing a really good defensive team in the Texans, they didn't have enough weapons to ultimately compete with them. So, they had to address that in a big way. So they went out, drafted Marion Hampton first, pick in the first round that they had. I believe it was 21st overall. Went out and got him. I think might be, all honesty, I was saying this and didn't think he'd last to the Chargers pick, but I was saying he might be the best running back in the class, bar none, because I think he's really built for the NFL game. Aston Jency, Quisan Juggins, Trevion Henderson, some of those other guys, they are, had their ups and downs, but I think that he's seriously built for the NFL game. His size, his speed, his short area quickness, his contact balance, and being in a run heavy offense is going to be tailor-made for him to be a star, in my opinion. So they hit a home run with that. I can't argue that at all. Bringing in Keenan Allen as well, I thought that was a slam dunk. I thought they should have did a little bit earlier, but hey, Keenan a little bit older, he don't need training camp and things like that to get really acclimated to building with Justin Herbert, because he's already done it, right? So not really arguing there. But going back into the draft again, they went out and got Trey Harris, second rounder. A big body receiver in Mike Williams-esque body type, a little bit faster, a little bit younger, a little bit less injury history. So I like that pick. Went out and got him another receiver. So you got two running backs and receiver already. Got Najee Harris in free agency. Now we understand his eye issues and things of that nature, so he might take a backseat of Marion Hampton, but he is definitely another bigger back, 240 pounds. Having to tackle 220 pounds and 240 pounds all game long is going to be tiresome for a lot of defenses, especially early on. So they definitely committed to that idea of getting some big bruising running backs in the building. But I've got to upgrade a tight end in Tyler Conklin as well. Drafted Ronnie Gaskin in the second, in the fifth round, I believe. And he's a very good receiving target that he's shown some flashes in glowing ways that he can catch the football in the preseason as well as training camp. So we'll like that pick. Then when I got Keandre Lambert-Smith, who's been a revelation to everybody. And again, I said, I'm more intrigued about the Lambert-Smith pick than I was the Harris pick. But both of them have been shining, so I'm not arguing at all. So those are some big-time weapons. the offense looks completely different weapon-wise than it did a year ago. So kudos to the Chargers for doing that and going out and getting those guys, short, quick and in a hurry to bring Justin Herbert some more support, and he'll have to do it all himself for sure. So getting to this other side of the ball, getting to the defense. Now, edge rusher was a bit of an issue. Joey Bosa couldn't stay healthy when they moved on from him. Khalil Mack was up in the win, whether or not he coming back or not, but he's, getting long in the tooth in all honesty. Respect for his game, and he still can get it done. But, you had to add some pressure to that room, aside of Tui Tuipulotu, who's going to be, the stalwart in that room, who led the team in sacks last year. You had to add some juice to it. So they went out and got Kyle Kennard in the 4th round. They went out and got Caleb Murphy from a UDFA perspective. He shined in preseason, and he made it the roster, flat out. So definitely give him credit for that. He's shined a lot on special teams and in edge rusher room. So you added more depth and more firepower, more speed in the edge rushing room that was sorely needed, because somebody got to chase down these mobile quarterbacks. That's for sure. You got to chase down these mobile quarterbacks and get things done in that space. So adding 2 new pass rushers to the room of Bud Tooley and Khalil Mack with 5 edge rushers should be a recipe for getting after the passer in a big way. So that's definitely a plus and definitely an improvement from last year. And then overall, just the continued stability on special teams. Finding Cameron Dicker as your kicker, and him being really stable and really accurate kicker was something the Chargers haven't experienced in any long-term, success in the past 10 to 15 years for sure. Having a solid, special teams unit that doesn't make penalties or give up big plays, put the teams in bad positions on offense or defense. So having a solid punter as well, that's, even the long snapper, although he's on IR right now, some stalwart and solid guys that don't lose you games on special teams. That's the biggest thing, because we as Chargers fans know that it has been a myriad of a disaster on special teams in the past 10-15 years. It has. If the offense, the injuries don't burn you, the defense being terrible doesn't burn you, the special teams burn you. You have all the other things sold up, but you give up a touchdown or a penalty or something that swings the game on special teams, that is a killer. So the Harbaugh regime bringing in stability from the special teams perspective has definitely been a glowing admiration in addition to this team. I love what they're doing there and continued success to that. So maybe I won't, browbeat a bash to Jasir and Dean Leonard retention because they're good on special teams, maybe. But again, I still have my reservations on that. I said that in my last video, but I'm not gonna cry over spilled milk. But I think that holistically, the unit, special teams, has been really good, and they're really disciplined, and they don't give up plays that'll cost you games in the NFL, which is a good thing. All right, so moving on to the bad. Got to get there, and I guess you can say gloss over too long. But here, the biggest, most glaring issue is offensive line. And it's not just their ability to run block, which has normally been an issue, but them as a whole. In all honesty, you could legit have questions about everybody but on this O-line but Joe Alt. With Sean said going out, we were sitting here as fans, wondering what we're going to do about the interior O-line, right? They went out and got Mekhi Becton, yes, but guess what? Mekhi Becton is having injury issues now again. He had one healthy season with the Eagles and got himself paid, but he hasn't been healthy with the Jets and things of that nature, and he's coming back with another knee issue. And I said this, and I'm gonna say it again. When Mekhi Becton came into the league, I said this on my main channel, the Lockdown Diva Sports Network, in my draft coverage. I said Mekhi Becton was too heavy to play the position he's playing at tackle, which ultimately got him moved to guard. And I said that he playing that height, that weight, is going to be too much torque on his legs. And it's been an issue. It's been an issue. I'm going to be honest about it. And the fact that he's having knee problems again gives me pause, because I've been seeing this. You can't play at that size of that weight in this physical league and have any longevity. He has lost weight. I give him credit for all credit to do to that, but he still is a big man. He still is a big man. So, him playing at that weight, even at the weight he is now, it can be problematic. The wrong hit or the wrong twist and the wrong, leg whip, anything could be an issue that could cost you games. So it should be a concern. You got to keep that in your back pocket and say that if he goes down, we really got problems at guard. So the O-line as a whole gives us pause. How's the unit going to function? You move Joe Alt to the left tackle, who he played in college. We had questions about Zion Johnson, the former first-round pick at guard. He said left guard. That's what he's played. That's his position. Now, really good run blocker, but his pass protection leaves a lot to be desired. Same thing with Bradley Bozeman. Same problem. I would argue design is a little bit better blocker than Bradley Bozeman, but they still do that well. But yet again, that's their calling card. But everybody knows that they're weak in the passing protection department. Makai is good at run blocking, okay at pass, and his health. That's the issue. And we don't know what Trey Pipkins is going to be. He was terrible at guard last year. I mean, he was mediocre at right tackle the year before that. But again, people know the weaknesses of this O-line. You're looking at two guys that you can probably, count on, assuming Makai is healthy. But the other three, you can question. You're going to line up your best players against them and make them, earn their paycheck that week. Let's just be real. So the O-line is going to be a big time concern. And it's not just about run back and all pass blocking for that matter. It's about the holistic unit. And can they move the ball in the run game, which will bode well for Greg Roman's offense, which I'm going to talk about. And if they do that, then they might be able to get by with the passing aspect of it. But if you don't run block well and you already have issues with pass protection, it could be a long year for the offense. And that's just honest. So we'll see how things roll, but that's a concern. Next is Greg Roman's play calling. I've long been a critic of Greg Roman's play calling. I think it's too run heavy and too run centric. And I really don't feel like he has a really good pulse, a really good feel for the nuances of the modern passing game. Which ultimately, that particular avenue is what win games in the NFL these days. Now the old school way of doing things. And I think he's stubborn a little bit and he does not get out of his own way in a sense and let people, kind of lead him along into the new way of the regime of the NFL is currently constructed. Because teams are winning games with sophisticated passing schemes, not just running schemes. Your Sean McVays, your Kevin O'Connells, your Mike LaFleurs, and things of that nature. Even the Shanahan tree, they're all winning games with a sophisticated passing attack, not just a running one. So I would argue that you had to get that together and listen to Marcus Brady, if nothing else, man. Marcus Brady is there for that particular reason. You brought him in for that particular aspect of it and try to innovate and utilize him to be able to give a more nuanced passing scheme. Now, some of this might not matter, honestly, because I think the first thing I underscore might give Greg Roman a pass. Because I think that if the O-line is bad this year, most people won't even get to the idea of Greg Roman being a bad play caller or an aging play caller. I think that he'll get a pass because the O-line will be the fall guy. Everybody will blame it on the O-line. O-line can't block, they can't run block, they can't pass, or they can't get anything done up front, so he can't call the plays he wants to call. And I'm sure he'll blame it on them rather than, looking at himself in the mirror. But I think that's one thing that you should, in all honesty, consider that Greg Roman's play calling could hold his team back. If the O-line can't block. If the O-line can't block, he'll get exposed. If the O-line can't block, then we'll be worrying about this next year when the O-line be improved. But yet again, I think there's an issue that people may or may not be focusing on. Next up for me is the interior D-line against the run. Like, I really am concerned about that, especially by losing Poona Ford. Now, I will say this. I do believe that Jamari Caldwell is going to be a star. I think him and Terry Tartar is going to be the stalwarts of this O-line, of this D-line, excuse me. But I do believe that if what I'm seeing is true about some analysts that's saying what the depth chart looks like preliminary, Jamari Caldwell's not in the starting lineup. And I'm like, why not? He's probably the second best run defender that you have. And on first and second down, he should be on the field, in my opinion. And we may get there at some sooner than later if you start having issues with the run game, but he should be out there day one. I think he's proven enough to do that, especially with, Deshaun Hand and Naquan Jones not being the best, the decent, but not the best run but stoppers. So not better than him, in my opinion. So I think that those two, along with your edge rushers, should be your primary focus. And who's going to be the third guy? But having a Tito Bonio or Justin Oboje or Naquan or Deshaun above him is kind of a bad idea, in my opinion. But again, we may get there in its entirety, but I think you can do yourself a service by getting him out there early. But we'll see. The interior linebacker depth outside Deion. With losing Junior Carlson for the season, Troy Dye and Marlo Wax and guys of that nature are going to have to step up because Denzel Perryman, I mean, he's really good against the run, not great at pass coverage, to be fair, but he's also has an injury history. And that concerns me. If he goes down, then we got to fill in with Marlo or Troy Dye or one of those guys, maybe Sean Phillips. If those guys have to come in, what are their limitations? How well will they play? Now, I did like what Marlo Wax did in the preseason, but can he stick with Deion and play at elite linebacker level on that second level of the defense? Can he do it? He hasn't had a chance to do it yet. He hasn't been on the field, in a large space. So I would argue that that's the question. if Denzel happens to go down. But if Denzel can stay in the game, you maybe take Denzel off the field and put another DB on the field and on third downs to keep him out of coverage. But outside of that, I got a bit of a concern. It's a bit of a question mark for me. Next up is the quarterback's ability to cover man to man, and this kind of plays into my last point about Jesse Miller's scheme. Now, he has chosen a lot of corners that had the large frame and a large body types and tall, lengthy corners for the ability to kind of create walls in zone. You want to be able to put enough big bodies out there that you have the limited ability to throw around them, right? But I think that at certain spaces, to certain cases, you have to be able to play man-to-man defense in this league. And especially with the idea of, but if you're playing zone and you're playing off coverage, you give up a lot of yards easily, in the first 2 downs of 4 down territories, right? I think that if you play soft, in my opinion, you use that word, loosely. If you play a soft coverage, you don't give your pass rush much chance in a lot of spaces. Your pass rush wins and gets home more so when you play man to man. When you play press man and you get into these receivers and don't get them off the line and let them have quick releases and get open quickly, you allow your pass rush to get home. But if a quarterback can get the ball out in 1 or 2 seconds, the pass rush is never going to get there. I don't care what scheme you run, what blitz you run, what type of defensive coverage you call. If you're calling zone, you're going to give up yards in the NFL. Quarterbacks are going to pick you apart. And I think that the defense, although they had really good scoring numbers last year, they got stingy in the red zone. They weren't great, against the short passing game, the short running games and things of that nature. People could drive the field on you a little bit. The running attack was, depending on who you face, was a little bit, left a little bit to be desired. The run defense left a little bit to be desired. The pass coverage was soft. They didn't play a whole lot of man. And I think that you have to be able to have the ability to do that if you want your pass rush to be effective. So, with that being said, I'm a little concerned about that. I think Justin Miller plays a little bit too much zone. I think his scheme is really ridiculously zone dependent. And I think teams know that at this point. So they're going to short pass you to death and make you, be on the field longer, drive the field on you, wear you down, and ultimately be able to score on you late, especially. So I think that he needs to switch it up a little bit, play a little bit more man-to-man, but does he have the personnel to do it? Because the corners he chose are more so zone cover corners. I would argue that Dante Jackson's probably the only person that has the propensity to be a man cover corner. Everybody else is more adept to be his zone. And if you can't play man-to-man, you don't play it well. Just be honest. So that's a concern for me as well. So they could give up a lot of soft coverage plays in first and second down, and you have to basically, fight to get them off the field on third down, which hasn't boded well in certain spaces against good teams. So we'll see how things roll. But I think that Justin Miller needs to play a little bit more tight coverage to give your pass rushers the ability to get there and sack the quarterback. Because if they're getting the ball off in 1 to 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, then Khalil Mack and those guys are never going to get home. That's just my take on it. So we'll see how things roll, man. But that's my biggest improvements and biggest concerns. You got more weapons. Offensive line you got more edge rushers, which is good. Offensive line is a question. Greg Morman's play calling is a question. The D line run against the run, the interior linebacker depth, the cornerback's ability to play man, and Justin Miller's scheme, 2 zone dependent. So let me know in the comments how you feel about this. What do you think? Did I miss anything? Do you want to add anything to the list as well? Do you think that, maybe I'm being more critical than I should be? Let me know. I mean, give me all your feedback in the comments as well, man. Hit that subscribe button as always to let the YouTube algorithms know we're doing big things out here, man. And I'll be back with my preview of the Chiefs game for Friday, man. So check that out. Check out all the videos on the channel. And you got to always do one thing and one thing well. You always got to remember to bolt up.